it brought us together, our senior team. There were 15 of us that participated in this, and it brought us together. Just in that we had like a kind of a common language, and that we were all undertaking this together, and that we were all, there might have been, like I said, some nervousness, but for the most part, we were viewing it as a gift.
Exude Human Capital hosts Hold On, Let Me Close My Door, bringing real HR stories from real professionals with real solutions to you. Join us as we navigate the ever-changing workplace with Allison DeFlorio, co-founder and managing partner, Exude Human Capital, and special guests. I'm Allison DeFlorio, and I am really excited about today's topic. Some of you may get anxious when you are told in an organization that you're about to have a 360 performance review, and just think about what that may feel like. Well, today we have with us Chief Administrative Officer Robin Roberts. Robin is with the Boys and Girls Clubs of Delaware, and she's here to share with us today her experience in successfully implementing not just 360 performance reviews, but really unlocking the potential of feedback in her organization. So, welcome, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison, and thank you for having me here today. I'm excited to be able to engage in this conversation. Again, my name's Robin Roberts. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for Boys and Girls Clubs of Delaware, and I've been here for coming up on 14 years. In my current role, I have leadership oversight of fundraising, marketing, human resources, facilities, and also board engagement. But I started my role here with the Boys and Girls Club as the VP of HR. So I was in that role for 7 years, and then this opportunity presented itself, and I've been in that role for the last 6 years. But prior to this experience, I had all for-profit experience, and I worked in the gaming and hospitality and financial services world. I worked for Caesars Entertainment, and also Dover Downs Gaming and Entertainment, and JP Morgan Chase. All HR, lead roles, basically. And I don't know if the listeners know about Boys and Girls Clubs of Delaware, but we are the largest licensed childcare provider in the state of Delaware, providing before and after care programs. We have 44 clubs throughout the state of Delaware. We have 600 employees, and we're serving about 3,000 kids a day. And our mission is to serve those who need us the most. And it's a mission that I'm, excited and proud to be a part of.
Robin, we're so proud to be partnering with you on this podcast. And I don't even know how you find time to do this based on what you just described your role entails. But we really appreciate and value the work that Boys and Girls Clubs do. You're a remarkable organization. And I think it's remarkable also, your background. I know when we were prepping for this podcast, you spoke about your experiences with 360s in other organizations,
Right.
as well as
Right.
introducing it in Boys and Girls Club. So I'm excited to have you share some of your insights
Mhm.
on what made this successful. But I wanted to share some information just to give a little context to how much of the work world feels about 360s, and when someone in your role is saying, hey, we're going to implement something new. Listen to these stats, because I found these pretty astounding. 79% of employees suspect colleagues are using feedback to settle personal goals or
Mhm.
personal issues.
Mhm.
48% believe that 360s are amplifying office politics, and that sometimes they're tainted by personal bias, which I can understand that if
Mhm.
not done correctly. And
Sure.
lastly, 39% in this particular poll of employees felt that the 360s strained workplace relationships. Now,
Mm,
I know in talking with you that was not
yeah,
the case with
yeah.
boys and girls clubs. So I would love for you to share a bit about when you first introduced 360 reviews to the organization. What were some of the initial reactions that you got from people receiving feedback, and how did you address any resistance or discomfort?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for sharing those statistics. They were really interesting. And I could see, I could see some of that for sure. That's part of the watch outs, right? Or watch out
Mhm,
for when you're
mhm.
thinking about doing this type of a project. We at the boy, every place I've worked, I had 360s. I guess I just feel really blessed with that because that, is not, I don't think not typical. So every place I've worked, I've been able to be a part of it or driving it. We've done it twice here. More recently, we, in the past, 6 months did the project with Exude. And it helped that both of the times we did this, we had great support from our CEO. He was the one, well, I was in the HR role the first time we did it. And so I was kind of pushing it more. But he was pulling, he was right on board with it. And this last time, same thing. So having the support from him really, that's huge in
Mhm.
terms of taking this type of a project on. And he just was like, just super supportive. Um, I think it's natural for people to have a little bit of trepidation around 360s. I think if you're going to launch one, you probably need to be thinking about that. And what will you do to, make sure that people feel safe around, doing the 360? And we did not have the experience that you described in your statistics around people, office politics or negativity. We just really, we did not. In fact, it was the opposite. It was more collegial. It brought us together, our senior team. There were 15 of us that participated in this, and it brought us together. Just in that we had like a kind of a common language, and that we were all undertaking this together, and that we were all, there might have been, like I said, some nervousness, but for the most part, we were viewing it as a gift. I mean, many people here described it that way. This is a gift to me for my professional development. And they knew that this costs money. And in a nonprofit organization, when you're able to spend money on this kind of thing to invest in your team, they're so appreciative of it. And I think our group was just like really appreciative of it. Um, the other thing is, I think it's important when you're undertaking this to choose the right firm to partner with. And this last time we partnered with Exude, and Exude really helped us kind of think through some of the aspects of the 360, making sure that we were communicating properly to folks. What is a 360? How is it going to be used? How is it not going to be used? What questions do you have about it that we can help you with? Um, so I think it's important to choose the right partner in this process.
And thank you for saying that because I know that you worked very closely with a consultant on crafting communication,
Yes.
and actually I believe you even had a meeting to talk through what the experience would be like.
Yeah.
So to your point, people could ask questions, know what it is, know what it isn't.
Right.
I think, and you mentioned this in different words, but it sounds like you were intentional about creating psychological safety
Mhm.
around this process. Can you talk a little bit about how you did that?
Sure, sure. And I that's a good way to phrase it. I do think we were intentional about that. I mean, one of the things that we did that really helped with that was, well, two things I would say. One was when we had identified who from Exude was going to be our coach for our team, we invited her to come together with all the people who were going to be doing the 360 and basically tell this group what is a 360. Many of them had never done this before. So it was really important to lay that foundation and give time for people to ask questions. So she explained everything, what it is, what it's not. She answered people's questions about it. They got to know her on a more personal level because this was done in person, not a virtual meeting. And I thought that was really important too.
Mhm.
And so that really helped. And she actually spent the day with us and we had lunch together as a group. And so I think that really created more of the psychological safety, throughout the process. The other thing was we were clear with folks, this is not going to be used for your review. This is not
That's
something,
important.
yeah, we're not doing that. I know some groups, some organizations do. We were very clear that we're not doing that. We also said, you do not need to share this information with anyone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
That's
you're not required, you don't need to share it with your manager. I mean, obviously your coach and you are gonna have it and talk about it. It's not being shared with anyone. And so if you choose to share it with your manager or your direct reports, that's up to you. But I think that really people were like, oh, okay. All right. That I think really helped.
your approach is so different from, uh, how some organizations, perhaps the organizations that were part of the statistics that I shared earlier,
Right. Yeah.
may do it, which is just, send an email saying, "You're gonna be participating in this process.
Right.
People will be evaluating, blah, blah, blah." Very
Right.
different experience. So I get why your people went into it with maybe a little bit more vulnerability or
Hmm.
feeling safe about
Right.
being
Right.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
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 You mentioned, when we were, talking about this, that you valued this time doing it with Boys and Girls Club, that you paired the review with coaching, and that
Hmm.
you had done it in the past without coaching, but can you tell us a little bit about the impact of adding some coaching with the
Yeah.
feedback tool?
Yeah. Sure. I feel like the way that I would describe that and the decision to do that was taking this from good to great. It would have been good if we hadn't done the coaching, but it would not have been great. And I think that's like the secret sauce to this whole thing. I really do. And we had 3 follow-up, each of us who participated in this had 3 follow-up sessions with our coach. We had the same coach throughout the process, which I really liked that there was continuity there. And I'll tell you why about that a little bit later, but um those sessions, the first one was obviously just a debrief of your results, and kind of going through your results. But then the other 2 were where we were able to dig in to some of the areas that were identified as opportunities for us. And the coach was really engaged with us in helping us. The other thing I liked about those coaching sessions is they were spread out. They weren't like, oh, one week, one the next. It allowed enough time that real life situations came up
Mm,
that had been identified as part of your results that you needed help with. So it was beautiful, I think, because I mean, for myself, I actually had a situation that came up and it was an area that I knew I needed to work on. And so I worked very closely with my coach to prepare for a follow-up discussion with one of my direct reports, using her as literally my coach.
that's great. That makes a big difference from turning this from a box checking activity into a meaningful application exercise and
Right.
development case. You had shared with me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but and in the beginning you said that having the CEO support was really important to the success of this. And I know that you had mentioned a couple of examples of how some of the leadership team members
Mhm.
shared their own experiences voluntarily with
Yeah.
the team and how
Yeah.
that impacted the the effectiveness of
Yeah.
this exercise. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. And one thing I neglected to mention that I think is so important is our CEO um, went after the money in a grant process with Jesse Bell DuPont Foundation. He is the one who got us the funding to do this. I mean,
That's
that like,
fantastic. That's
that
really
level of
great.
commitment, right?
Yeah.
He personally put the grant request in, so, I mean, that'll just give you a sense of how dedicated he is. But the how this kind of sort of presented itself, and it was in a very collegial fashion, and it just would come up naturally. We have regular senior leadership team meetings, every other week, and oftentimes something would come up, and somebody in the group who had had the 360 would mention in a joking and lighthearted way, "That's something as you all know, that's something I need to work on." So, I'm putting it out there. I know, I'm trying. Or somebody might say, "Oh, I know. I've been told I need to have more brevity in my communications. How did I do?" It was
Oh,
just,
that's great. That's
yeah,
great.
it was just really kind of out there, and people really just being very authentic about it. Yeah, and in a lighthearted way too. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
And my boss shared his results with me. I mean, he didn't send me his results, but he met with me, my boss, the CEO, and said, "These are the areas that I'm working on. I just want you to know." And then I did the same. And some of my direct reports did that, and others chose not to. And that was okay too, right?
Yeah.
That was fine. Um,
But you're modeling the behavior, which
yes,
I think is another key to why you were so successful in delivering this.
right,
And I love that you give people the option to say, look, you can share the results or not share the results. Did
right.
Speaking of that, did you do anything with looking at aggregate results of people
Yeah,
from an organizational perspective?
yeah, I'm glad you asked that because that was one of the things that we did. And this is how we did it. Because again, we're, protecting anonymity, and I don't want to know who said what about, I don't, the CEO doesn't. But what we did was we scheduled a meeting with our coach, and remember our coach coached everybody.
Hmm.
And we basically asked her to meet with myself, the VP of HR, and the CEO, and let us know if she saw any trends in,
God,
her meetings, her coaching sessions, the data that we got back from the 360s. And she did. She had seen some trends, and that was very helpful. Yeah. So we did do that, in a more organic way. It was not, we didn't go back in and do a data analysis of the tool, but she was very helpful in identifying some trends that she saw.
that's great. And I would imagine you're probably using that information to think about what kind of training or
Yeah.
continued development opportunities you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
provide across the organization to that level
Yeah,
of
definitely.
leaders.
Yeah, definitely. We have been we kind of paired this with also a talent calibration exercise that we did where we had identified our high potential folks in the organization. And so there were some training needs that came out of that. And then also looking at the trends that Anne mentioned. And yes, we did, and we are using that to plan ongoing professional development activities for folks.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I just your approach is so thoughtful and so thorough. And if I'm thinking of the people listening to this right now who are saying, gosh, we've been talking about doing this for years. Uh, what best tips or pieces of advice would you have for anyone who is thinking about embarking or heading down this path of introducing 360 reviews in their organizations?
Yeah. There are three things, and some I've talked a little bit about them already, but I'll just reiterate. I do think the rollout and the communication of this needs to be very intentional, very well thought out, and well executed. That's just critical, really thinking that through and allowing time for, especially when you have people who have not participated in this type of process,
Yes.
or ones who have but had bad experiences at
Hmm.
other, places where they've worked. So I feel like that rollout and communication, and that choosing the right partner to do this with, yeah, and exude, worked very well for us. So that was one thing. I would also say the second thing is the support from senior leadership, and particularly your CEO.
Hmm.
I would almost go so far as to say that if you don't have that, maybe don't do it.
Mm, that's a good
I
point.
I mean, it would be so hard to do it if you did not have that support
Hmm.
from that individual,
Hmm.
and that senior team. So I think that's another thing. The third thing I would say is if you can work the coaching sessions, the follow-up coaching sessions into your plan and your budget for this, do it, because it is, like I said, it's the good to great. It really is. So that would be my third kind of tip that I would say.
Those are great tips. And I just want to I mean, they're all important. I want to underscore that support from senior leadership because the
Mhm.
way that you did it, it wasn't just verbal support, it was actionable support throughout the process. So
Right.
kudos
Right.
to your CEO and the entire leadership team for embracing the process
Yeah.
and leading by example.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Robin Roberts, I want to thank you for sharing your advice and sharing your wisdom about how to really effectively implement this 360 feedback. And you're in doing so, you're creating a culture of feedback in your organization, which is
Right.
what so many organizations want to be able to do. And you've done it so successfully. So
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
And to all of our listeners, we hope you're walking away from this podcast with a few little golden nuggets and tips for you to be able to share with your organizations if you choose to go down the path of introducing 360s in your organization. So we want to thank you for tuning in today. And to hold on, let me close my door and hope to see you next time.